far and a few things that have come up um, over the last several whiles or a few whiles. When was the last time? Last one was 30th, so that's only 3 days ago. That's kind of crazy. That's not usually me, but it's been an interesting few days, to say the least. So several years ago, I was on my motorcycle. Actually, before that, well, let me just start with that. I was on my motorcycle, having problems. My PTSD was kicking my tail, so I tried to over get my brain to kick off. Couldn't get myself moving, couldn't get anything going, kept getting stuck. Psychology, still stuck in many ways, I guess. So I'm on my motorcycle, I'm going on my trip. I figured it's one of those ones that was on the list. Click, another walkabout. Run into an acquaintance who turned out to be just completely, yeah. Let's just say we'll get back to that person in a little bit, but not a very good person. Even though they had gone through their own things in childhood, it doesn't give them an excuse to do the behaviors that they do. And the person had already stated that they knew that they were doing their behaviors were pretty shite. But the thing is, what has been that person had usually had gotten away with it in their friend group. Everybody knew that this person played people, so to speak. And but this person tried to play me, and I have a heightened sense. And I am pretty sure I'm riding my motorcycle around the country. She's playing her freaking frack games. I'm just trying to figure out, why are you attacking me? Why is this happening? And at the exact same time, trying to figure out, because this person is a one percenter, you know, came from a wealthy family, generation. Well, I don't know, so it's just not as many generations as ours, but generationally enough. And trust fund, they're a little trust fund kid. So where she would normally mind frack people and get away with it, she tried to mind frack me, and it gave me a direct into her brain. So it was a psychic fight for months, years. Oh gosh, it was the worst. It was the hardest. Because if you've never gone through the reactive abuse of a person who's that antagonistic, until you've gone through it, you can't explain. Most people end up completely nuts, lost everything. They the whole goal is to get the target to disassociate, so they can steal their personality by mimicking that personality, and then destroying that personality via a scapegoat process. I was too strong. So in this whole thing, ended up she and her little drug dealer and decide that they think they have the right to threaten my life and then threaten people I care about's life implicitly. This is known due to my previous work in the military. And I even said, I really can care less what you're doing. I just needed to know why you were doing what you were doing and why were you attacking me when I never attacked her. So, in so doing, it's probably caught because they're seeing this chick get fried. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Her friends and the little party people in LA were watching her get her mind fracked, and nobody had ever seen this before because they're used to her frying other people's minds, but to get it counter fried was mind numbing for them. So I'd assume somebody hacked into my phone, and they started, and I also had placed out a video concerning my observations because I was able to see that this person had disassociated into three parts: id, ego, super ego. Id, little kid, ego, which was actually, I call her, see, the kid was Jana, and then the mid of the ego was Jan, which was You know, so in the ego, we're actually pretty cool and chill. But the superego, the mom, the projection that the little child was saying to the mom, was of the mom, was just an horrific human being, and she spent all the drugs keeping down the ego and the id, which was the little girl, and the heart of of her. But what happened, in the conversation through music, which was seemingly done impossible, and found out I can do that with anybody who would do that. She would, she was telling her dad what her mom was doing, and then her mom started abusing her until she started abusing her dad, and together they ended up mind fracking their dad to the point the reason he probably passed was he must have missed something in one of his plane when he was flying or something, and he passed in a plane accident. But Jana, the little girl, told me that they did that on purpose. And when I confronted, because I split it into Jana, Jan, and Miss Lewis, and this is all at public, so it's not a big deal. When I confronted Miss Lewis, part of that personality, she knew. The response was spot on. Jana told on her dad, on her mom, and that's why her mom would sit there. But what was her mom doing? She was doing all kinds of drugs. She was basically getting pimped out by her nanny, which was the most egregious of violations of trust. Her nanny was a black African American woman. So, so I'm looking at all this and I'm learning this, and as I'm going through, I'm unwinding all these situations about culture, how the meme sets and all these behaviors. Mind you, my main thing is branding. That's what I focused on when I went to school. Branding through artificial intelligence, logic, nonlinear logic. Been studying Gödel's theorems, Kolmogov's theorems for years. I'm naturally ambidextrous, even though I'm right-handed. I'm also left-handed, depending on what situation goes. Usually, mostly more right-hand dominant, or a lot of times I'll be right-hand dominant, and I'll have to flip things around in my head as well. My left hand wants to do it, but it didn't have the built up. So flip things back and forth, but it's still, I always stay very centered. I know who I am. Because as growing up, mom was loved Shakespeare. The main thing that always was repeated: "To thine own self be true. Know who you are." And then also, as a person, as a young wrestler, you don't get good at things. You do things that are difficult to learn who you are, to push yourself to be who you are, to be the best of who you are. Or the worst, depending, but for me, it's to be the best. So we'd go through, and in this whole situation, apparently, you have these people hacking my stuff, throwing it out online. I have no idea who it was or who it is. Well, I don't know who it is now. Who it was originally, not sure of. I just assume it was some kids or somebody or some people trying to like see this crazy shit, dude. Check this out, right? And then after a certain situation, I think it got the attention of somebody, and then I think they probably took over that feed, and then somebody else took over that feed, which ended at the Disney Corporation. It looks like, and more importantly, Lucasfilm. After I had to I had to put because Kathleen Kennedy was trying to falsely state that Gina Carano was racist when she's not racist. She was fangirling over freaking Apollo Creed, but you know what I'm talking about. Because both athletes dealing with Hollywood, and I'm pretty damn sure, just knowing, listening to all the crazy that was going on in that part of the story group, they would probably attack Gina Carano because she's a strong woman. She's not going to be like, oh, that little twit's gonna play a little flap, babble their lips and think, oh, she's just gonna do what I told her to do. Yeah. Fighters fight. That's not what's gonna happen. So, and I felt it was very wrong. So I triggered their systems, got to her attention, and then plus all these other things. And then in one of the videos I placed out where I was talking about my observations and when I came to the conclusion of how the split soul works, I had stated that George Lucas had saved the Republic because the kids might not know what's going on as far as the big politics and the 1%er games and this and that, but they knew what Palpatine sounded like. And they knew that the former president sounded far too much like Palpatine. And they showed up and they voted. And they were the difference between getting President Biden into office. If they had not shown up, Trump probably would have won. Because when you're in that whipsawing that antagonistic persons do, especially if you're in the in group, because your whole thing is the whipsawing so toxic and he's out grouping people. They were the ones to see what was up. They said they knew that this might not have known, as I said, is more an intuition from years of watching the Clone Wars growing up. I watched Clone Wars. I'm an old guy, but also I actually when I was really real small with Star Wars, but I got older and I really didn't remember Star Wars. My brother took me to watch when I was a kid, but the main one I remembered was because the prequels, and I understood the whole politics of it all, and there was a few things about Jar Jar Binks in there. I'm like, yeah, it was like Jar Jar in my ute, just bebopping around. Oh, curious. Just life was cool, man. You know what it goes. But in it, I told the story of a damn neck, and then down I said, if we showed up, shit's hit the fan. And then I said those words, shit's hit the fan. I burned myself, so to speak. I'm not a person who likes to be out in the open as far as I don't seek attention. I'm not an attention seeking person. I prefer not to have attention drawn to me. That's why I don't like going to places in groups. Got a group of people doing all kinds of dumb shit, and I'm like, I'm gonna go disappear over here. The shadows I fit with better. And so I have this something, I couldn't figure out where the cameras were at. I couldn't figure out where the feed was at. Then I realized, I started seeing other things like, wait a minute. People are listening to what I'm saying. Something about what I'm saying is forefront. Something about it. I don't know who it is. I really don't care. Well, I should just kind of say I do care, but I don't care at the same time. But so the corporate entities apparently got a hold of the situation, and they're making money off my name, and that's really kind of annoying. But I don't see any of this. I don't see any dough, and motherfuckers thinking they can control my shit. I'm like, okay. Control me. Control me. Good luck with that. I'm about to find that one out. So in this adventure, getting into a nice, long, crappy shouting match with Joe Manchin, trying to get $7 trillion package through to help us out to reset the American dream. This goes against the World Economic Forum. They were trying to do their whole reset, and I don't really care. I've heard about it. I haven't actually dug in or actually even read too much. It's like, okay, the great whatever. But I did know that Bannon, who is a fascist white nationalist, is trying to do this reset. And you were seeing the South rising again, hatred and anger and id focused, as we now know. So as I went off on Kathleen Kennedy, I'm like, well, geez, now look at this deep water I'm in. Gotta love that. So where did this go? Yeah, into geopolitics. Okay, so why? This asshole thought said he set an assassin after me. I went off, found the Kardashians because I said they're the worst thing that could happen. I tried everything. People who were attacking me, Kardashians, because these because it was the the bias that was going on. I couldn't use civilization to defend myself because of the bias, and I had to fight through that bias to use civilization. So that's why I pretty much hammered. Um, um, what's going on? But with that situation, I looked at it and I could see how this one action, this little situation, could be repeated and was repeated, and see how China and Russia had split America apart. And there was one point where chick was doing her stupid. And I said, I need you to stop this. I'm trying to stop World War III. And she looks at me like, whatever. Yeah. Came out to be a lot truer than anticipated. Because Russia eventually, Putin went over the border and tried to annex all of Ukraine. That blew people's minds. So after backhanding Kathleen Kennedy, I was kind of given a slight reprieve by the CEO of Disney. Well, me being me, well, got to make some allies, and I just looked at it as purely as a situation of I got to find people on the board to back me, to back us, to prove that this situation is not good for business. So, then decided to show what we can do, that we are in a point where we could use the human infrastructure. Well, I wrote all this out. How the city, where humanity, what is infrastructure? We're taking care of elders, R&D, entrepreneurship, manufacturing development. Because I figured if stop this situation, these are things that can be done. But how do you convince? And I had everyone convinced, yeah, this is good to go. All I needed black Americans to do was march, and of course, being contrarian to their own, after years of being practiced to be contrarian to their own demise. It's kind of, I found out what Bernie found out. Black African Americans in general, just because the white folks do it, we can't do that. Not thinking about it, but just sitting there, you can't do that. This is Mrs. Tiffany Cox's thing, trying to say, it's blah blah blah, but why are you with those people? Because I didn't grow up in a freaking hood, dude. I don't view people via race. I view them being behaviors and actions and cultures. Because that's one, that's how I was taught. But two, it's just, well, I didn't live in the hood. It's not my normalization. Poverty, extreme poverty, generational poverty is not my normalization. So I didn't know it doesn't fit my narrative. Which, whoo, come to find out, that really does script a lot of people's bank accounts and makes me a very much a threat to the status quo. So in this, I piped out this mind map. I haven't really changed it in the last year. It's just Star Wars Celebration 2021. It's we're in 2023, and I explained how I viewed the world, how I view America, I view freedom. And freedom has three types. Mainly, I've been hammering this one very well: tyranny, freedom, and slavery. Tyranny, rights without responsibilities. Freedom, rights with responsibilities. And slavery, responsibility without rights. And as I look at this, we now, and we so breaking down all of this, and I realized the main thing that are dangerous, most dangerous, as we're looking at what's going on with the plutarchs and the oligarchs, as they don't believe in borders, they don't believe in countries. Countries are just something that they can use to whatever strip mine, as we're seeing with Elon Musk throwing America under the bus, which is irony. America made him ridiculously rich. He would not be as rich as he is if it wasn't for America. But yet, he's throwing America under the bus, which is not too surprising. I'm not sure if he was an Afrikaner, but I wouldn't be surprised. They were the worst of the South Africans. And it's not saying, well, yeah, we're saying your company is a reflection of you, and judging from reports, and then looking at you can look at the structure of the management team. Yeah, even if he isn't blatantly racist, which or bigoted, because remember we end up breaking it down. Yeah, the company shows that it's not diverse, and diversity is not about, oh, we hired this person or that person. Diversity is saying, yeah, these are skill sets and that, and they can mesh together. But however, a lot of times, a lot of what I was able to prove is bigotry is an id structure. And what do I mean by id structure? It is an externalization of self. In psychology, there's a thing called different clusters. In cluster B, from my perspective, is an no, from listening, learning from such persons as Dr. Romney and what's his name, Dr. Carter, Dr. Les Carter, and Michelle Neves. And as I was going through this mind frack of crazy, came to the conclusion cluster Bs are id focused. And id focused persons are essentially animals. And they externalize themselves into three parts. Well, they externalize things as objects, which means, and you go back to very basic psychology, had to redo a psychology course online, and from listening to and dealing with this person, I went, okay, object permanence. Then I came to my conclusion about object permanence or lack of object permanence, and then Michelle Neves came up to the same conclusion probably about a week later. And so this is, and Michelle Neves is a lay person, but a person who's gone through bad narcissistic abuse because she has a big heart. And but from there, I structured out a behavior structure of where these id persons use objects and how they use objects, people as objects, emotions, and then the NPD persons, or you have three antagonistic styles. You have the borderline, the narcissist, and then the psychopath. The psychopath is very genetic. Its frontal lobes are not on, so there's low emotional states. So everything's an object. So it seems that's why they always seem so chill. sort of, until you know how to see them, that they're really not as chill as they actually pretend themselves to be. But that they everything's an object, emotion object, and then the narcissistic person puts their id, ego, and superego into different objects. These ego, the positive person or the higher value person is externalized and then scapegoated, because they go scapegoat, golden child, and invisible. Golden child is the objects that doing the emotion objects that they have control over, essentially, and doing what they're supposed to do. The invisible is just there, but the scapegoat is the one who is their own self. Oh, can't have that. Can't like they can't do that mirror. And it's really, which is hilarious because my tagline, my brand, one of my brand taglines is Morpheus Mirror from the Greek, and I've had this before I learned about branding. That's what I was really getting into my logic and philosophy, recursive theory, set theory, things like that. And that was, I've always dealt with computers since I was a kid. So Morpheus Mirror, the Greek god of dreams, looks in the mirror, blah blah blah, back and forth. Where's reality? And the mind's eye, Douglas Hofstadter, blah, things like that. So I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing all these things to put all this out. But I realize in all of this, the 14th Amendment, the Southerners have been right, because grow up in the South, they hear always this: the South will rise again, the South will rise again, blah blah, freaking blah, right? I don't think half the people realize what they're saying, but it's just what memes do. What memes do. It's a mind virus. It's going to take over the mind. Demons mean demons. Mind viruses. They have to continue. Universal consciousness or group consciousness, macro, and stacking consciousness. Because if you look at it from a set theory point, all of these stacked consciousnesses create culture and things like that. So, and then thinking about Ayn Rand and that one line that always struck out to me, because there's so many really crappy people who read Ayn Rand and they want to say that they're Hank Reardon, when the real reality they act like everyone but Hank Reardon or John Galt, because they would think to think that way. I wouldn't think to think that way. So to read Ayn Rand and go like, "You've got to be flipping kidding me," blew my mind. And that was years ago. That was well before this, dealing with this. So I've had dealing with those. And two, I was somewhat of a psychic. What does that mean? I'm within my mind. So, of the side, and also I would always, because of course I had taken several times to argue with a professor about mysticism, about religions, and blah blah blah, and the psyche and Jung and all kinds of boring stuff that nobody ever reads, except crazy people who are just curious about dumb stuff. No, I'm just crazy and curious about dumb stuff. So we go through here. I'm trying to sit there. This is all trying to get Manchin on board with the voting rights. He didn't go for voting rights. Well, all of this has put the country, because once Putin realized um, that Manchin wasn't going to break the filibuster or do the voting rights, he figured, oh, sweet, America's almost destroyed, because he's been working on just undermining and splitting America apart for the last 20 years, trying to rebuild the old Soviet empire, but even more so, the Russian empire. Peter the Great, he thinks of himself as the new Peter the Great and stuff. And you got Xi over in China thinking he's the new Mao, or the greater than the new Mao. Putin rolls over in Ukraine. I call it. I'm like, dude, he's about to go over. First it was in December. I was like, okay, that was weird. He just kind of caught him flat. So, European Union, they're all doing the hand-wringing, and the ministers. And I'm like, dude, did you not read the fall? Did you not read the rise and fall of the Third Reich? Come on, man. You guys got like 16 PhDs. Don't you see this? And it's like, oh no, they're not fighters. So he tries it again. He's Putin's rolling over. Pissed him off again. And he finally said, screw it, and 24th he takes off. but because of that, because of me kept going and my entire life being transmitted to the internet, Ukraine was ready, or at least they were willing to fight. Goliath, Goliath rolled over the frickin' borders, and David said, "Nah, homie, we ain't going back." And they're still fighting. Has unleashed a great deal of weaponry, manpower. Not so much manpower. We just say, you go fight. Well, we actually have a lot of manpower and some other stuff because it's the kind of thing that most Americans believe that's what we should do. It was the, it's the honorable fight. It wasn't for money, even though yeah we have to always make sure we get our capital regions because we're Americans and we're a business and the business of America is to make money. Even though the 1% has been ripping us off, which I came to and told explain how they keep getting us in debt and where's that debt go into their pockets. But it was it's the American thing. It's what when people think of America, world police, America, but yeah, woo. But also, main thing is we always, even though we're the richest, biggest, toughest country on the earth, as a culture, as a country, we believe of ourselves as always the underdog, the little guy who made it. You know. So I went through all these things about how the world works, just off the top of my head. Nothing, not too much research. Well, there was a little bit of research, but most of this comes off the top of my head from all my battling. Yeah, I wonder what that does. And but the years of just like where are we? Where is we're 7 months, 8 months into the war in Ukraine now, and all these people. Kathleen Kennedy is now trying to change my brand, and it's just there was a psychic battle between myself and Kathleen. Well, still is a psychic battle between myself and Kathleen Kennedy, who is the meme who possesses, or the meme entity Abeloth holds, it possesses her as or uses her as a cauldron, big pot. Same difference. So I guess the thing in witches. Not that she's a chick, that she's just a pain in the ass. I don't know how George Lucas put up with her for so many years, but I guess she was bringing in some money. But she was also, because I was also talking about how Star Wars was also bringing out a lot of racism. I'm seeing a lot of double speak in some of these videos. Not all of them, but some of them are like, whoa, dude. But that was coming out of the story, that the sequels of the third trilogy was her story. And she freaked out about that. So off comes the fight. So it's been a battle. It's been interesting. And right now we're at a point where the elders and a good amount of people are still, because Congress did not put Trump to the hold Trump to an account. We're in this moment where we're extremely close to being turned into an authoritarian country, because Trump stated he was never planning on leaving. Ivanka knew. Jared gets that $2 billion loan. All the authoritarians are going, oh yeah, we know this. He's an id focused idiot. He uses the dialectic to to externalize himself. So we get a rise of authoritarianism. We see that it is not good for this country, but Putin's loving it. Well, used to love it. Now he's freaking out because he has to win in Ukraine or he's dead. Or try to give him an off ramp, but Persons like him just doubled down and quadrupled down. Right now, you got Shoigu, who smell. He's smelling the weakness. Ooh, he's a circling. Ooh, yeah, not Shoigu. I mean, Prigozhin. He's smelling the bodies, and he's licking his lips, licking his chops, going in. Meanwhile, through this time, Kennedy has tried to control my brand. And I am a small business owner. I am a sole proprietor. I have an EIN as a sole proprietor. Branding is my thing. It is my branding structure that President Obama used to win the White House twice. And so the Democratic Party, and we'll get back to that in a second as far as capital is concerned and how all these people are thinking, well, you got all this money. It's not in my bank account, so I don't got shit. Period. The end. And two, if I take your money, you're going to say, well, you have to do these strings. I've already heard where she's trying to say, well, you got to go work with these. No, I don't work with shit. I am an entrepreneur and a capitalist. I am not your pet, and I damn sure aren't your employee. I'm nobody's employee. But she needs that because the structure, the full psychological structure of what has gone on within the United States is the persons who are id focused, what they do is externalize their negativity using reactive abuse onto black African Americans. And after generations and generations and generations, they know if they do this, they're going to do this. I am not black African American, I am Jamaican American. And that is where the craziness happens as this whole time has gone on. Due to certain affiliations I had, and what I'm talking about with this externalization of self, Prince Harry asked for aid and comfort. I gave aid and comfort to help him through the situation as he was dealing with not so much from his wife, but from his mother in law, as we have learned. Which then ends up because he wanted me to explain to Her Majesty, Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. Now, I'm pretty doggone sure, not just because of my affiliations, because I have no idea my family background. Outside of being Jamaican, it was like, yeah, I'm Jamaican, whatever, dude. Right? I grew up in America. I'm American from the burbs, dude. Right? So, I speak like I'm from the burbs. And, but there's certain teachings in the way you do things that always seems awfully strange. What I end up learning is that we're not from, I might have grown up from the burbs, but from a cultural perspective, we ain't from the burbs. And only recently did I realize just how far we ain't from the burbs, to be colloquial. That in this whipsawing and Abeloth trying to break my mind and get me to disassociate from myself, and I maintain my sense of self, fighting through all the psychic fights. End up learning that we are royal. We are royal blood. Mother never told us. Never knew. Just off little small hints. And very, very, very small hints that I end up putting all these pieces together. I am pretty sure there are some people who were backing me who knew this, even though I did not. Because it came down to, as a royal, even if as a minor royal at the time, I used that position to fight for the people. I'm an American. I think as an American. Okay, I got this thing I could use. Okay. Keeps me alive, one, and kicks your ass, two. I'm going to use it. So, So that is what I did. It has been a trip. Her Majesty passes away. I in trying to do these things, I ended up going in asking for, I mean, because one of the things of always trying to build businesses, it was the hardest thing was getting funding because I don't act black, because I'm not black African American. And a lot of times Caucasians will deal with black African Americans, and the black African Americans will think that they're in control when they're being played like a fiddle. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just step sideways and let you think whatever. And then they will attack me and all this other stuff. So I was like, hey, man, I got an opportunity. But mostly it was, yeah, hey, you say help save my sister, could you? I'll do this. Because I put my sister in because of this little trust funder and her little freaking gangbanger slash cartel boyfriend put us in trouble and in danger. And Kathleen Kennedy's used to being able to just steamroll over everyone, and now she ran into a slight problem. The one person she couldn't steamroll. And two, I don't fit the narrative. Because what has happened over the years, and what I was able to prove with the help of other creators who were not, rest in peace, Kevin Samuels. Abeloth killed Kevin Samuels. That was a fight because this psychic shock that was going on at the time was just like the psychic mind battle. That was just a bear, and then she ended up overloading him. It's kind of almost like what Putin is doing with the whole nuke thing, or trying to do with Biden, trying to overload him and trying to get him to have a heart attack or have a stroke. But he knows that now, so he's like, okay, so I see your play. So even if he does use a nuclear thing or a tactical nuke, even though it will be a shock, it won't be as such a shock to where it'll overload and take Biden out of commission. Because what he would want to do is then split America as soon as Vice President Harris became president. And that's Putin's plan. Xi's trying to go over to Taiwan to show that he's Mao. He's bigger than Mao. Now that he doesn't have to worry about term limits, he's dictator for life. Gotta love that, right? Which means he's going to Japan. He's going to attack. He's seeing all the things he's going into, like in China, like in all these countries. He has police stations. He basically does not care about other countries' sovereignty. Isn't the belief? The Chinese belief is people. If you're Han Chinese, you're still Han Chinese. You belong to China. You don't have a individuation of yourself. Crazy stuff. So going through this, fighting, dealing with the admiral who screwed up my career. He's trying to cover his ass. I'm trying to prove my name and improve my name, but it really sucks. And what the thing that makes me the reason they're trying their hardest more so to try to one think they can own me is now, especially now, is even minus the whole royalty thing, royal, British royalty thing, is I don't fit the narrative. They purposely, the 1% who own the radio stations, who've been buying up the local media, so there's no local media or anything. They've been trying to drive this country into a dictatorship. So for their own greed. This is the same thing that happened in the rise of the Third Reich. But I don't fit the narrative. Not thug, not a gangbanger. Ooh, first generation college. No, you need to go way farther back. Pisses off the old money because we're older money, older education. Come to find out, we are civilization. Every everything that most Caucasians would say they are, or what they are, to do the whole you're supposed to be beneath because this doesn't fit. That makes me very, very much the greatest threat. So they bring in Jay Z, and Jay Z is supposed to be like, yeah, so that way I owe him, and blah, blah, blah. And no, I'm too busy sidestepping, trying not to get killed. And he's only doing it for himself, right? You know, you have Beyonce, everyone's Queen Bee. But in the reality of how civilization is structured, Lady Markle is above her. And we'll get to that in a bit. And I am definitely above Jay Z and Beyonce as my sister and mother and my brother, especially in the Great Britain and the Commonwealth. So now, I'm doing this thing. Since I get this into this contract, as I write a letter to Queen Elizabeth, she responds and back and forth, help her transition because she had finally got tired of these idiots. Deuces, guys, I'm out of here. There was a grenade on the way out the door. I'm that grenade. Strips Prince Andrew of his titles as a warning to Prince Charles about the Queen Consort. She raises Camilla to Queen Consort not as a thing where Charles is going, yeah, da 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 da. No, no, that's a trap. That's a cage. It's a gilded cage. But Lady Camilla, is thinking that she's going to control things. She's already tried to split the brothers, attacked Lady Markle through the media, which Prince Harry just flipped out for good reason. Because if you've never been on the other side of reactive abuse, it is so it's so hard to explain to somebody. Then he's getting tagged twice. Oh yeah, and then because from his mother-in-law and from stepmother. Oh yeah, yeah. I feel sorry for it. Yeah, that sucked. Woo. And then splitting him from his brother. I went through the same thing with my sister-in-law. Still going through it. But because I had gone through it, knowing this, I was able to somewhat put a kibosh to it. But the price I have to pay is I'm now, and in this situation, it's like, okay, we got to find out who is trying to overthrow the royal houses of Europe, Japan. Nobody knew about Japan and Europe. I did. But who's trying to overthrow the royal houses of Europe? Even though most of them are just figureheads. But most importantly, who's trying to overthrow the royal house of Windsor? Camilla and the conservatives. So I said, hey, 15%, we'll figure it out. You don't have to give it. But we're going to find out who was trying to screw us over. Because not only were they trying to overthrow the royal house of Windsor, overthrow the Magna Carta, and then also overthrow the Constitution, both the British and American. Now, King Charles III is thinking, well, the Magna Carta is no longer. I am a complete tyrant with his very evil person whispering in his ears. That was the grenade. Not the grenade, not for him, but that's by raising me. He said, basically, you're an American. You have two different jurisdictions. Guess what? Your job is to stop my son from being a complete moron and losing the crown. Lovely. Wasn't said out loud, but we know how to speak to each other. Those of the same class can speak within the same class. I never lost, even though I'm American, middle class. The teachings you learn as a youth keep you in your class, and I am still very much, as I did not realize I'm still just me, but the core self is still royal. And it's the thing that the innateness cannot be faked. Uh, that one chick who the air tried to be the fake heiress, or whatever. She was sort of able to fake it, but when you really listen, just even got watch only like 3 or 4 episodes, and I was listening, I'm like, I see how she did it, but I can also see why it only took about 3 or 4 episodes to figure out. Oh, she was the help. Okay, but it wasn't, and it wasn't because her rhythms were not old money. The rhythms were possibly new old money, like second generation. So at least as it was portrayed in the TV show. So so I'm going through all of this, and right now, then I get to the point I'm like, okay, because I have this deal with Her Majesty before she passed. King Charles is trying not to fulfill the contract. Lovely, not surprising. I have to keep pressing to make sure he fulfills the contract. He's going to keep trying to gaslight me. I got to keep pushing to get the contract because I'm a man of my word. Do I find most of this annoying? Yes. I even told Her Majesty that I will still be doing what I do. I'll be doing all of this from my van, riding around the world, snowboarding, doing what I do, smoke weed, and travel the world. That's what I do. That's what was the goals. That's how I was. The reason I was having all these problems because I said this is how I want to live my life. I want to do stupid stuff, and we have the technologies where I can do stupid stuff. And I have trained, I have studied, and I've done all these things so I can live a weird life that makes me happy. But so I'm going to still do that weird life, but I'm also going to fulfill my duty and my obligations. Now, on the way out the door, I asked Her Majesty is like, "Hey, can you keep, Prince William's wife and Charles's wife from killing me? I'm pretty cool with that, I'm doing all those things, but you're gone. I know the first thing they're gonna do is like, yeah, yeah." Now my dumb butt, thinking like an American, forget it, okay, royal blood, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm just figuring she'll just say, "Don't kill this dude," and Hamdi Damdi can't be killed. I have a feeling that that's not what's happened. I don't know exactly what, but I'm pretty daggum sure that's not what happened. Especially after I was thinking back through some of my mom's, sometimes of my mom's abuses, she would revert to her child self, and my grandfather had all these silly hangers on and all this. Dude couldn't get his back in his pants, and can't blame him. Right, honestly. Now that I understand a little bit more, but they always said I'm most like my mother, because when we came to the country, my mom removed my brother and my sister's accent, which means she also removed parts of their memories. I had no such function. My accent's my accent, American Jamaicanish, right? But as she's doing this, and she sat there when it was, she took on the behavior that wasn't Dolores, which Dolores is the young girl who held on to her title, the land title. Pastor has to be an eldest. Very important in British society, let me tell you. But one of these personas would say, "Your Royal Highness." I'm like, yeah, whatever. And laugh. And then as I've learned, and one day it hit me recently, like within the last 2 weeks, I think, that was my grandfather. It wasn't just being facetious, it was the truth. And I'll tell you, main reason that one of the main reasons is realized is this is John Glover. He runs this great web page. He hasn't been posting much. He should have posted most of this. The Brothers That Travel and the things that were going on at the time. He's looking at me here like this. That was a post, right? I'm doing my thing. Jamaican teams are track and field teams. They're pressing harder. I'm getting this thing, like this vibe, like we got your back, we got your back. I'm like, what for, man? Just But I figured it's just go American, Jamaican thing, blah blah blah. But this is at the time that I found out I was royal blooded. Yes, I was tested. And at that time, I can no longer give blood. It's like, gosh. And because I like giving blood, that was like, you give blood, and I've given over several gallons of good blood. I think that's really cool, something you should do. But as a royal, my blood cannot be given anymore once you know. And especially now, once you know about different types of DNA stuff where they can literally create different pathogens and stuff, my blood cannot be given away. But that picture right here, where he's doing this, he's looking at me going, do you know? And that's when I realized there's something more that's going on. Two, and also the thing was, as soon as he figured out who we were, Prime Minister of Jamaica's like, yep, we're dipping. we're cutting chalks. I'm like, oh boy. Certain things, because we didn't know. I didn't know. I'm just, dude, I'm like, hey, I'm just Reg, man. What's up, bro? Sweet, dude. Right? So, they're the situation. I have an obligation to a contract. Well, a duty to a contract. Well, obligation to uphold the contract. I'm getting constantly hammered because 1%, one, they know they don't want to lose their money. Because two, there's not so much to lose their money. They don't want to no longer, because they think that they control King Charles through Camilla. And then Camilla controls the rest of the house through whispering into Charles' ears. And Charles will end up losing the crown. And Charles believes that he can control William. But I think William's eyes are opening. He's a good man, he's an introvert. And people tend to underestimate introverts. We're patient, we look around. But God help us when God help you when we're pissed and we figured out that you're trying to screw us. Charles better remember that. Even if he is, well, he's just my son, I could control him. Yeah. You're putting his child at risk. End of statement on that one. I'll let you figure that one out, King Charles. So the thing is, and so he, that was only in the 20th when I see that. So this is where we're at right now. We got a war going on. Kathleen Kennedy's stealing my brand, trying to manage me. I have I figured out who was the fourth man, which was a plant in the CIA, which was undercutting our intelligence gathering in the Soviet Union. Who killed JFK, or why they killed JFK. Not so much the individual, but the entity, the meme entity, the thinking set of individuals that ended up killing JFK. How Star Wars works, how George Lucas created Star Wars. Not so much created it, but why the mythos and the myth and legend and why it's such a powerful story tool, and that why you actually sold it to all people, Disney. Well, makes sense now as we've gone through all of this. It has been a wild flippin' ride. So right now, we're at the point where So I said to the Democratic Party, I'll do these things, but because I cannot be political, and you know that it was, it was my main thing is branding. I call it brand response. I developed it. It was the system that Obama used, still using, Biden used. So it's two presidents, three different ones. Most corporations use. And it was when I was talking to a guy the other day, and a lot of what they're trying to do is actually corporate espionage. They want to know how I develop brands, and I won't do it. Now, this whole thing with NPD was me mostly trying to figure out, okay, how to, because a lot of quote branding nowadays is by persons with who are id focused and are antagonistic, and it's really not branding in the way that I do branding, which is a whole of self, a whole of corporate, a whole of being branding structure. Before it was them, it was just a they would tell a story, but the story they were telling wasn't really a story. It was just an externalization. It couldn't be felt by the entire organization as the brand. That was the main thing. Everyone, there's a lot of HR and blah 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 that try to do it, but they really don't get that and how to create that brand story. And the person who can do branding at my level is worth billions. Because I was sitting there talking to this individual, I was telling him about it, and I was like, yeah, I was saying that my thing was GM. I just threw out a number. It's $60 billion, right? I don't know what the GM's numbers are right now. It's market cap. But then there's another capitalization called brand capitalization, and it is known and it has been set up within legal theory in the United States and the Western world. And told him, I was like, yeah, I could create that $30 billion of brand equity. And then he goes, now I get it, because I was talking about how this whole place I'm living in has been wired. This camera, and it took me. I used Tiffany Cross and her little freaking wanting to show herself to figure out. I kind of had to figure out where I thought the cameras were. I even pulled the thing and I couldn't see it. I know the technology from my old work, some technology, and I just assumed, okay, that's 15 years. God knows how fast that. What other technologies? I figured maybe they were using IRF, different types of wavelengths. I don't know what's going on, how they, or what they're using. And I'm be honest with you, I've a lot of keeping my head buried, because I don't want it to actually know. This was an opportunity. This is a situation. History called, duty called. I did what I have to do to save the Constitution. But I do not work for anyone. I am a citizen. And two, I have to be, because I am also a sole proprietor. I own my brand. I choose how my story will be stated. And this is the thing that Kennedy has been trying to do. First, she's trying to say, oh, you're a Jedi, so that means you can't be with chicks. Go fuck yourself. Then she's trying to play, oh, you got some mental illness. No. It's called study and reading. BAP. Well, then she pulled the whole gay thing. That was like, okay, not happening. You need to quit with that crap. Trying to press all of these other things except for cisgender, straight, heterosexual male who's melanated, who has a melanated skin adaptation. Because she can't control. If she can control that narrative, then she will be able to control. Just like this, just like the 1% controls Jay-Z. The reason they let Jay-Z become a billionaire, and he's the king dog, is to say is to keep the prisons full. Quite honest with you. Yes, Jay-Z's done good things where he's helped LeBron James and all this, but I cannot. And yeah, he was working with Kevin Samuels before he passed, and working with Don, who was a dude in my class, who just stabbed me in the back, but that's fine, whatever. I was always expecting to do it anyways. I said, hey, $200,000 for consulting, because that's part of my thing. It's consulting. Democratic Party will not pay me because that means they lose control. They keep trying to, and the other thing, the main thing is it's called entering in. What they're trying to do is, and then I also said, well, okay, for stabbing me in the back, I need 2.5 million because I know they probably, I still, Don, you're not supposed to stab me in the back until you got the money. So I have to make the assumption he got paid. And I said, all right, pay me my cut, 25%. I think he was thought I'll give him 5 or 10. Nah, homie, don't do it like that. You don't make that much money off of me, and I don't get my cut. Nah, fuck that. And so, because the minimum I would accept is 10 million, because it's a royal brand, 0.001%. But Jay Z needs to be the king bee or whatever the fuck he thinks he is. And again, I don't have time for that shit. Because, he's helped other people, like I said, but then he's still the thing which that still makes the gangbangers the type A, which are not the type A's of black American community. Can't have that. We're not going backwards. We're not gonna. We've seen the damage that has been done. It's where you now have a 90% single mother ratio within the black American community, which was done on purpose. Right? You have regular, just men in general, young men in general, in full revolt because women are acting just crazy and men are trying to, they were taught, hey, you do go out, be the provider, do, work really hard. And then there's women who are just acting stupid. Well, what would seem stupid, once you understand the pattern, once you understand the thinking process, the externalization of the emotive process, they become predictable. So I cannot, one, I was sent 2 emails. I know the DNC, Triple C's doing their thing, using my ideas, because I'm sitting there watching the news and I'm seeing it happen, but they don't have the backbone. And what their thing is, like I'm doing the trading, and they're going to say, "Oh, we're just waiting for you to make money," show that you can trade. No, that's not how that works. I'm not going to do that because the moment I make a dollar, they don't have a seat at the table. Because what they do, it's called entering in. If they enter in with that behavior, that means they believe that they can manage me. I can't have that. Not as a royal. Not with the contract that I have to fulfill. And it wouldn't matter just because they're black African Americans, just Caucasians either. Because just can't do it. Because then they would believe that they have emotive control over the House of Windsor. I don't think so. This is what happens to a lot of countries that'll do business. You see this what happened with Kenya with their standard gauge railroad. You go into something with one way and then you get bamboozled. And here's the thing, there's an actual structure in thinking. Very id focused, externalized structure thinking. Once you understand that, it's like, ooh, got it. Which I'm going to explain here. This is why all this backgrounding. Because I'll get to that part at the very end where I'm going with all of this. So this leads to a thing that was happening the other day, quote, to explain how this works, the feminine works, because the men are all the young boys, the young men revolting for good reason, because women are, as I said, they're just dudes thinking they're trying to do the right thing, and they're getting slam hammered. This is the theocrats put under God on in our stuff, our paper, and so that's the under God implies a king, because this is what the parliament looks like. This is the way of the American system looks like. The people, the Constitution, the rule of law, and then the courts, and then you have the vice president, and you have the Congress, and then you have the executive branch. Or in Britain, same thing up to here, but then you have Parliament, House of, and then House of Lords, and then you have the Prime Minister who goes and speaks with the king, and the king or queen is technically considered a god or goddess. So just letting everybody know that why under God is not very good. This was the whole thing about when I was doing the negotiations with Mansion. And here is how, well, partly how the structure should be of humanity, but it's not. They was able to show that there's a difference between a bigot and a racist. Most people are racist because that's just, we see differences. A bigot needs the externalization, which then I show that that structure of externalization is very, it's focused, which then you can say, if you want to take popular culture, is very Sith like, using Star Wars as something that's easier to understand. And we know the Sith are all take and they're all destruction and war and hatred, but they're externalizing all of their internal fear because that's the lower animal nature. That's what makes them Sith. They're just basically advanced animals. So here's a situation where was I? Here's where the structure of where went through like what a normal healthy person would look like, where this is masculine north to south and feminine inside out, using this book called Power versus Force, and you're looking at these emotions. And we know persons who externalize themselves, which is considered psychopathy, NPD, have a lot of shame. Not so much guilt. They pretty much jump right over the guilt, but they go to shame and anger and even some pride. But it's mostly the lower thing of controlling people, where the difference with power is understanding and flowing, be as water. And then the structure of the NPD person was all pure superego, which is a lower self state. If you look at the color dimensions, that's how I said it. And then this was the structure I came up with of an NPD person, and then you have NPD, and then this is a psychopath, which is an id, and then a narcissist or cluster B, who was just a superego trying to superego meme trying to fake being a person. That's why you have those people who wouldn't think to think that way. But and where the id focused is more quote feminine because it's a dialectical and it's a type of dialectical. But one of the things where I was getting to this is where a lot of young men are getting upset. They're trying to do their best. They're trying to do what's right, and then the chicks are all going to the jerks, and so they figure, oh, I got to be a jerk. I got to do this. And what happens is this. Let's say here. So let's say this is a chick, right? And this is what happens. What was happening right now? Old friend, well, old person I knew from high school. Well, from growing up in the hood. I'm in the neighborhood. I never live in the hood, but the burb. Right? She's gaslighting me, and the way the gaslights start was, I'm in here, and this is how I knew it was a gaslight. And I said to myself, yeah, because it was about, there's one chick who she has a she has her ways of she has a stable of guys, but she's very open and blunt about it. So it's very open. You understand that's it, and it's also a way of her protecting herself. Because I think she went some time years ago because she's really super duper attractive when she's still pretty attractive actually, but when she was younger. So I think she got caught up with a really kind of a jerk-headed dude, and he really hurt her. So that's how she protects herself. And but she's also but she's also very protective of her daughter. She doesn't let her hurts she doesn't push her hurts onto her daughter, and she does not allow her stable near her daughter. Her daughter's older, she's in her 20s, so and we all know every man, if you say you do, every straight man is like, oh, I get the daughter and the mom, woo. She doesn't let that happen. She put out a gaslight on that. I don't want to say it. I'm like, huh, yeah. And I thought to myself, and I said it out loud because I'm usually talking to myself out loud in the privacy that I don't have. And then, because I was thinking about it, I was like, she didn't put that out there, but I was like, yeah, I'm like, man, I'm, being a man, being a suggestion. Then there's, puts out another picture. I'm not going to put up the picture of her and her daughter doing the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, that's a gaslight. But then another friend, has a couple of daughters, starts doing the same thing. And I'm going, okay, this is strange. I just let it go. But then recently, this chick starts, like the other buddy, we've known each other since elementary school. And we wrestled together. Women always think in the dialectic. Now, I've always been cool, whatever, but she never communicates. She never says anything. And in this situation, it actually helped me figure out a really nice thing about how the feminine, because there was a video. I saw the guy. It ended up getting pulled down, but this guy was showing how this. He had a night camera on, and his buddy. He was a dentist, all right, and and then he was just being a jerk off, and this chick, and he was sitting there going, "Yo, man, I'm gonna, I'm a nobody, blah blah blah." And she said, "Yeah, he's a dentist." And then when the dentist guy would try to, make his move, knowing that he's a high value male, she immediately would block him. But then she would get all the love and the punani to the jerk that had no value to her. So she gets the play, and the whole thing. It's the well, if it's valuable, you don't let anybody know about it, and and until you're ready, and that's what women will do. They'll go, oh, you're valuable, so you stay over there, because always it is, and then she goes screws the jerk off that she could control, and then and that's the setup. So because she didn't have enough self-esteem to deal with a high value male, so she has to destroy the high value male to build up her lack of self-esteem. And so Christine, and this person has done this before when we were kids. This dude, little Mike. Little Mike was just a dipshit. His stepdad got the stepdad who also had quote way more money than everything. I think whatever. And I was like, and I saw this, and I was like, I've seen this pattern with her before, and she's now teaching it to her daughters. So this chick is doing this type of gaslighting because what she started to do is like blatantly say to my buddy who was, we wrestled together. Oh, I'll do this. So she'll do the things and I've seen this pattern before. They'll do the things they want to do with the guy they want, with the guy they really can't stand. Then that guy will think he's being the alpha and then they'll scapegoat the guy they can't get, right? Or set up a duels to where they fight each other. And I'm like, first off, I've had a rule since I was a bouncer in my 20s. I don't fight over a chick. It's just stupid. If she's that fucking stupid that she's not worth my time, she doesn't know how to communicate, she's not worth my time. If she needs that, she's not worth my time. And then I realized, I'm like, as soon as I even get a twinge of jealousy or like a twinge of like, why is this person doing this? I immediately shut down and go about my business. Only reason I had actually dealt with this crazy chick is because she was a one percenter, and I knew my mom was a one percenter, and she was hanging out with middle classers. So it was like I was really trying to figure out my mom, not really caring about because under most circumstances, as soon as a chick does that, it's like deuces, I'm out. Because if a woman can't communicate one on one, then I find her as a turnoff. She doesn't return a text. She's not worth my time. She's not valuing me. But now looking at this structure, you see what's going on. So she's trying to play us. So she's doing everything, because she even put out that whole little thing. Well, you can do my daughters kind of gaslight, and I called her out on it. It's like nice gaslight. And then since I know the world's watching, I say, hey, dude, you go have at it, go bang her, dude. We've known her for years. Yeah, she'll probably even let you tag your daughters. Go for it, bro. But that's a piece of shit person, as far as I'm concerned. Because anybody now who knows me, it's increased their social value. So if she's going to try to devalue my social value to increase hers and then teach her daughters on my back, she's stealing brand. That's a brand theft. So But just as, would I still do it? Yeah, sure, do it. But not. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to be like, oh, I got to chase. Well, chase. It's a waste of time. You want to do me? Do me. But do you want to sit there and play all the fucking games? I got better things to do with my time. Because that's why I tell men, stay on your purpose. That's why, Rick of Entrepreneurs and Cars, stay on your purpose. Do the Lou Holtz thing. 100 things you want to do in your life. Because if a chick starts trying to pull you off of those things, she's not out for you. She's not with you. And then and if she love bombs, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm with you, and then starts to go, it's like, appreciate it. I will back you with the things you're doing, and we could do them together. But if we start seeing that I can't get my things done, and it's all about you, boom, to kick her to the curb. Because if the farther they can pull you from your focus, the more they can destroy you. And once they destroy you, then they scapegoat you. And this is what young men are like. How do I be a man? Because they're saying these gay guys are the men. They're saying these jerks are the men. They're saying these gangbangers are the men. Because what women will do is the first thing to do is, like, if they try to control a dude, first they go to their girlfriends, and then they start ganging up on the dude. If the dude's too strong, okay, then they go to the gay guys and they start ganging up with the girlfriends and gay guys. They can't do that. Then they go get the violent person and they start ganging up on him with the violent person. And that's what they did to the African American community. And that's why, me being a straight, cisgender, type A, because I'm a wrestler, you're not a type A. You can't be a type A you can't be a wrestler unless you're extremely type A. Type A is type A, who's not a gangbanger, doesn't have a fucking record, doesn't, granted, doing my thing for my own reasons, controls my brand. Yeah, that is the biggest threat to the 1% who's trying to destroy this country. And so for the Democrats not to pay me, and for Don not to pay me, I can't let that stand. Because it means it's the same bullshit. Because then they're going to say, well, we got all this money for you. No, because they're going to say, well, you have to do this, you do this, because it comes with this type of what is it? Endorsement, which means you have to be here. No, nah, nah, none of that. You can keep your money, because I want to keep my freedom. Because I'm required also to do so. I'm an entrepreneur and a capitalist. But more importantly, I'm a royal. Of the House of Windsor, of Great Britain and the Commonwealth. So I cannot do certain things like that. And from a branding perspective, which we're going to get into now, it is even more so dangerous. Because about entering in, if they can say, even if you're doing something, but the person over there says, well, they're this, so I'm going to treat them like this, you're counter to my brand. That's where I could not allow. She's trying to say, oh, you're a Jedi. No, I'm me. Now, do I mind being what is called the Knight of the Republic? Something that creating a structure, not do I want to be? No, I keep that to itself. But as I asked General Milley and the Joint Chiefs, it creates something because the kids can look up to. Yeah, we have the Green Berets, PhDs that can win the bar fight. Well, then maybe you have the double PhDs and the KOTOR. It comes from maybe the AmeriCorps, or they come from the CIA, or they come from any foreign or large, full-scale, like national service or international service corps. Very small group, and something very hard to work towards. It's within the culture. Might as well use it, right? Give people something to aspire to. Make it rare, make it really hard, And then, so I did say that. But in sitting there thinking everything, because they're using my brand, they're stealing my brand, because The all of these things, if I was not being viewed, would have stayed within me. And as a consultant, I have a master's degree, so I can be a consultant. They're stealing my my trade secrets. This is corporate espionage. And then being both me as myself and me as a sole proprietor, I own my brand, and the laws that create these brand equities within the court systems are now mine to use. So as I was thinking about these things, how do what do I do? One of the things is because, well, one of the things are all the same thing. So you have Queen Camilla. I am an American citizen. I'm a voting American citizen. She tried to attack me and also go after my brand. Two, she's devaluing the brand of the House of Windsor. So is Kathleen Kennedy and the like. So is Jay-Z. Not paying me, not giving me my capital for using my name to increase theirs, and for stabbing me in the back. Robin Hatfield, same thing. Now, YouTube, all of this is true. She has placed herself as a public figure, so therefore, last time I said something about her, it was true, but you did not, you tried, she illegally, she tagged my thing as a libel, which she was libeling me. The whole if it's not seen, it's not their thing. No. So she got a job through Texas A&M using my marketing systems as a teacher. The Lucasfilm, same thing. They're using my persona, my name, without my express written contract and of saying of exchange of value. So I've come to the conclusion. I am a royal, and they're devaluing the Royal House of Windsor's brand. So I'm going to sue them. Jay-Z and Beyonce, 200 million. Kathleen Kennedy, 1.2 million just for using my name, and another 1.2 million for devaluing the House of Windsor's brand. Same with Lucasfilm and Disney. The Queen Consort should be sued in the United States for devaluing the House of Windsor's brand and for attacking my brand. Not should be, will be, because I know there's an aspiring young lad, bunch of lads and lasses who would love to take on this court case. It'll take decades, but that's fine. To pay out $500 million, $3 billion, it'll be worth it. And if they're thinking, well, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, my thing's branding. I'm an expert at it. Corporates are using my style, my branding systems to this day. And they'll bring in somebody who's like, well, I'm a brand expert and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's cool. You're a brand expert in your process. And then I go, when did you start using this particular process? Well, I was doing this before. I'm like, when did you start using this particular process? So unless my money is here by 2 o'clock tomorrow, which it won't be, or I have no one wants to work with Black Americans because they're known to just stab people in the back. And this is where I'm at now, where you have Prime Minister of Jamaica, Holmes, Andrew Holmes, I believe, Holness. Now he wanted to he still wants to take Jamaica out of the Commonwealth, and I honestly don't blame him. And one of the things I had stated to Her Majesty was I was going to, invest in these in the Commonwealth, in the Caribbean islands, in these places where the more bigoted 1% won't go, and also the United States. But I need him to state, because I'm getting gaslit by the entire flipping world. I just need one person to say, yes, this is true. We have his back. Because as long as they don't say it, because that's how the gaslight works. If they can say nothing, right, then they can give it everything, they can externalize and then take everything. And that's what they're doing. That's the setup. And then the thing is, Prime Minister Holness, if you do not say, hey, we have his back, no matter what, because it doesn't, if it don't, if even if they leave, even if Jamaica leaves the Commonwealth, because I have no wants to be your whatever, dude. You got your Governor General. I'm just all about just doing my thing and making money, helping out the working worlds build some nest eggs for their children. Also, the uh, the royal houses of Europe, they've asked as well, so they're all in the plan as well. If you continue to let these people gaslight me, they're going to destroy you, because the way the id focused persons works is they externalize their fear and they take and they internalize the greed. And this is what happened to Jamaica. It's the same thing that happened. And if you let Jay-Z maintain the top of the dog thing when he's controlling, it's the same thing that happened with Manly, where the the most vicious and the gangs took over the culture of Jamaica, and you saw and you see all the bloodshed that's happened because of it over the decades. Same shit, different pile. Everyone's trying to manage me. I want to go get a car. Oh, okay, if you say you're with me, you say you're this. Well, we need you to do the thing that's not going to fit my brand. Go fuck yourself. Well, my duty is somehow to be over there on the 14th. But if I make money on my own, I don't want anything to do with any of you fuckers. Period. The end. If you can't pay me, if you're too busy being shitty, then I'm just gonna sue you. I've sidestepped 5 different fucking times. Mick Ravens tried to kill me. 6 times actually, trying to make it look like an accident. I am the most dangerous thing to the bigots, because if I was not a royal, I would have been dead already. Kill me, you start World War III. You break treaties. That was the hand grenade. I'm the hand grenade that Her Majesty left, threw, threw into the pot on the way out the door. There you go, figure it out. It's not in King Charles' best interest to uphold the Magna Carta, but it's not in Prince William's best interest for him not to, because his stepmom will attack him, his kids, Prince Harry, and his wife has already done so, and then his kids. He's already tried to make a move with Princess Anne, trying to get more of a control on her, because she's terrified of her, because Princess Anne can see her through her BS. Because of the behaviors of the Queen Consort, Prince Andrew has lost all of his titles. He didn't grow as a man. Saw the same kind of thing in my family. When you let evil, not so much evil, but a person who doesn't uphold the family archetypes into the archetype, into the family, They attack the family. We can't let this continue on. There's more, just out of, not even out of any moral concerns, because I really, I've always made sure one thing: it's always selfish best interest, always about money. Because, you got those id focused people. But yeah, there's a lot of those who want black African Americans to maintain their poverty, to actually get worse, strip mine them, whatever's there. They're thinking they're stealing my ideas and branding. Remember, I've put myself out there for years as a branding consultant. I don't consult much, but that's still who I am. That's still my training, and that's still who I am as a sole proprietor. And the thing is, if here's the kicker about branding: if the corporations, I put this in, and the corporations attack me for going after trying to stop the branding, for that whole branding thing, they are actually destroying the legal bounds basis for billions of dollars, which then means I can then turn around and sue them for not upholding shareholder value as they are required to by law. So they don't want to pay me. They don't want to do all this. DCCC doesn't want to send me the money that they owe me. Fine, I'll just sue them. And they'll say, well, we got a billion lawyers. Like I said, man, I'm suing you for billions of dollars. I'm pretty damn sure I can find a house of lawyers. They're like, yeah, it'll take us 10 to 15 years, but we'll still walk out with $3 billion. Yeah, we're good with that. Oh, and we get kudos for working with the Royal House of Windsor and the Royal Houses of Northern Europe. And oh, yeah, by the way, the other thing is, because Queen Consort Camilla is devaluing the brand of the Royal House of Windsor in the United States, she's also devaluing the brand in the jurisdiction of Great Britain and the Commonwealth. So I'll sue her there as well. And so you can't sue her. Well, that's fine. I can still sue her in the United States. Don't care. Oh, and then I'll do it in Japan if I have no problems there. Because you're screwing over all the royal houses. Because half of the royal house is not just about having an army at your back and money in your pocket. It is the mindset that you must maintain. This is why I am the most dangerous man, technically, on the planet, to the bigots. Just my existence upsets the apple cart. So, as I said, tomorrow afternoon, once I make $1, black Americans have no seat at the table. They think, well, we got all of what you're doing. No, not even close. Not even close. Because the reason they don't want to pay me is because that means they don't have control, or what they think is control. So fine. I cannot allow them to devalue the brand of the Royal House of Windsor, or the brand of the Sussex, or the Royal House of Sussex. So make a choice. Pay me, or in Kathleen Kennedy's case, I drive you into bankruptcy. Don't really care. Not my circus, not my give a fuck. My only thing is to uphold the Constitution and uphold the Magna Carta and precedent, which means taking on a former president. Don't expect to live through it, but hey, I'd be gosh damn if I'm gonna let someone walk all over me. They can go fucking suck it. So I wish everyone well. I hope people will be there on the 14th. And to make sure that the former president shows up for the several days that he has to testify, first behind closed doors and then publicly. And then if the things show that he had enablers, which is the most dangerous part, within the Republican Party that we use the 14th Amendment to forever remove them from power for trying to overthrow the Constitution of the United States. And it's going to take a lot of courage for black African Americans. I'm telling you, Americans in general, but especially black Americans. Because always, anytime black Americans have stood up for themselves, there's been a lot of whiplash and backlash. And they're going to say, well, no white, the old Southern thing, no white man has to listen to any laws by some black man. Well, these are white man's laws. And guess what? You're going to have to listen to them. And then have to undo all the mess that these oligarchs have been doing to try to overturn the country. You know, which is stop the whole BS constitutional convention drive. Make sure there's break up these large media conglomerates. Make sure that there's small local papers, locally owned papers, and things like that. Rupert Murdoch, just like Elon Musk, they don't view this country is just something that they came to strip mine and pilf. And this is the same thing they did with Rupert Murdoch's did with Rupert and Lack and Murdoch are doing with Australia, working with freaking China and Russia of all people, our mortal enemies. So it's in those assholes' best interest to try to keep me, or try to keep me from being me. And they're going to use black African Americans, jealousies, and all the other shit to do it. And then, as presently, they're doing what's expected and falling in line. But I hope that they do not. And the other thing about entering in is, once I make money, they can't say, well, they can say, oh, we were waiting. That's still a power play. I can't do that. Pay me. Period. You've used my systems. You've used my intellectual property. Compensate me. And I'm not even asking for much compensation. And that compensation is to be used to get what I got to get done. So that is where we're at. That is what has to be done. Do most Americans have the guts to do it? I think they've been brainwashed for so long, taught to give up, which is so sad because it's so un-American. But as Winston Churchill said, or supposed it said, Americans will try everything and do everything to eventually get around to doing the right thing. Paraphrased, of course. History says people like me aren't liked. History says people like me die. Uh, I was supposed to die years ago when I got in a motorcycle accident in Texas, so to me every day is just a bonus. And I'm going snowboarding this year because there's supposed to be some seriously good snow, and damn it, that's all I care about. So, I wonder what will happen. What will happen to us? Hopefully, I see everybody on the 14th. Hopefully, they pay me tomorrow because they have until 2 o'clock. After that, I want nothing to do with them. I'll do my duty, and then they'll try to say, "Oh, we gave you some emotion." I don't do emotion. I do capital. Period. The end. You're stealing my brand, and I will be recompensated for my theft of my brand. Oh yeah, and also suing Little Miss Lewis, Madison Orange, and Holly Adams, and Mr. Ty Briscoe as well for their for attacking me. Ty Briscoe is the little gangbanger that's working with that Jay-Z's too busy trying to protect. And then Kathleen Kennedy is protecting Janet Lewis, and then Holly Adams is a DJ that's in love with Jana. And then you have Madison Orange, and all these are public figures, DJ, who, under California law, raped, technically raped, but then they kept her close, so now she's trauma bonded. Well, she's going to have to make a decision: her financial life or them. Because I don't care about driving her into poverty. Not one bit. Life's about choices. Most people don't choose wisely. So right now, I'll say with Ukraine, there is not much movement. We need to turn all these buildings that they bomb and use vertical fans, vertical not fans, but vertical generators. Use the Bernoulli effect and turn them all into, so the wind comes in and it goes to the walls, and use and turn these and it's fans, and you turn it into a parallel, and over like 10 stories it's a parallel of parallel fans, and you use that to create power. But you don't do it over, and then all the buildings have fans until, so that's a backup power. Once, because they keep Russia keeps hitting the step down transformers and the power plants. Well, we'll just turn all the buildings they keep blowing up into power plants. Ukraine's going to win this war. Prigozhin's going to try to be bloody, as he is. He's licking his lips on that power. See what happens. Putin can move his forces back and quit with his stupidity. But he has to. But he can't, because part of the thing is he needs to keep the West busy in the West. So when Xi rolls over to Taiwan, we're too busy being split. It's always sad how idiots always try to create war and death. You know, I guess Xi would be the chief Enoch, the chief bureaucrat. He's shown that when he removed that guy in I think it was Who, he was saying it was a signal to the West, because he made sure it wasn't seen in China. It was a signal to the West. The elders do not constrain me. Okie dokie. So, what's to do, and not enough time to do it. As I said, we'll see what happens, even though I know what's going to happen. That would take courage of a different type. It's easy to be physically courageous. It's a hell of a lot harder to be morally courageous. Jay-Z would have to actually look at himself and go, yeah, this is true. And even if it's not, this is the right thing to do. But playing each other is the culture of Black Americans. So expect the worst, hope for the best. Slava Ukraine. Glory to democracy. And may the flag forever wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And if you have not registered, or if you can, come hell no high water, make sure you vote. If you're an American and you can vote, make sure you can vote. Make sure you vote. This cycle and the next. as if your life depended on it. Because honestly, it just might.